What's up, guys? In the works, and yes, you're seeing this correctly. I am using the M16, and you're like, oh no, don't use the M16. You always say that you don't like using it, and it's true, I don't like using the M16. There's much more, there's a ton of other weapons I'd rather use out there, but we're going to talk about the M16 today, and lately there seems to be a large amount of you guys who like to argue in the comments about why you think the M16 is overpowered, why you think they should, nerf the M16, heads will roll if they don't nerf the M16, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the weapon and why I think it is so heavily used, but also why I don't really truly think it's overpowered. Rather, should we have a discussion if, like, total balance on a weapon, no downsides, does that make a weapon overpowered? And that's kind of what the M16's at right now. There's really not a negative side of the M16. It has the fastest reload, which is probably the biggest advantage to it, but it has average hipfire. There's nothing special about the M16's hipfire. Any of the bullpup weapons are going to out hipfire it. The rate of fire is 800, which is good, but it's still outdone by the F2000, the AEK, the FAMAS, the MTAR. The M4A1 even has the same hipfire as it, or same rate of fire as it, rather. So you do look at some discrepancies there on the rate of fire chart, and you're like, okay, it's good, but it's not the best. Which makes it a little bit average in that department, at least in my eyes. Now, the recoil patterns. The recoil is pretty average. It does have nice low recoil. I will point out that at the time of this video, DICE is considering completely nerfing the recoil a little bit, giving it more upward recoil as you shoot, in hopes of making more people use its counterpart, the M416, which a lot of people see as the kind of the flip side of the M16. It's the alternative to the M16. And, the biggest downside I see to that is they should buff the other assault rifles if they want to nerf the M16. It would give people a reason to use something else. Because right now, what is the reason for a new player who doesn't really consider themselves a great, they don't consider themselves to have great aim? What is a, incentive to use any other rifle? Because the M16 does everything so average, it's so solid across the board, there's really not a lot of incentives to try out the other weapons, and I think that's the problem right now. It's not necessarily that the M16 is, quote, overpowered, it's that the other assault rifles are underpowered. I think that in terms of having other assault rifles that kind of do a couple things really well, there's no other choices. I mean, the AK-74M is definitely a better medium to long range choice, at least in my eyes, than the M16, because it's so accurate. And that low rate of fire makes it really easy to stay on target, but when you compare that to, let's say, the M16's fire rate, you kind of start to lose there, and you also have to look at the reload times on that. And, across the board, the Russian weapons are a little bit more underpowered than the American weapons, because, the AK-74S or whatever, AKS-74U, that's what it is definitely not as good, at least in terms of being a high fire rate carbine, than the M4A1. So you look at that, you're like, okay, DICE did a really bad job of making it so that all the starter weapons are kind of even across the board. I kind of disagree with that. I look at it and I'm like, okay, DICE gave you guys variety. The Russian weapons behave differently than the American weapons because they shoot a different round. They have different mechanics, and it gives weapons character. Now, the fact that everybody leans on the M16, does that make it overpowered? Does it make it that everybody uses the M16 as a crutch? It's a giant noob cannon, in the works. Why do you hate using the M16? Why do you think it's overpowered? Well, I don't think it's overpowered. I can't emphasize that enough. I think that it's just there. It's good as a nice entry-level weapon. And, a lot of people can't get past that. They're like, okay, I only want to use the M16. I only want to always do well. And you can't really hold it against people for always wanting to perform at the highest level possible in the game. And I guess you could say that is the definition of an overpowered weapon, but I don't know. I mean, that's up to you guys. I'm asking you guys' opinion. Do you think that being perfectly balanced like the M16 is, having no really big downsides to it other than maybe being outshot by some other weapons that have a higher rate of fire, does that make it overpowered? Is that what really defines an overpowered weapon? Because I think if you sit down and think about it, you're going to come up with no. I mean, you're going to say, okay, well, DICE, they thought it out, and they built the game around the M16. M16 is your base weapon. Other things are going to do things better than the M16. The M16 might do one thing better than the AK-74M, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's technically better than it. It's really only going to be as good as the person using it. So I don't know, I'm really looking for you guys' opinion on this, because I was sitting here and I was thinking about this video. I was like, you know, I kind of want to talk about the M16 because so many people have asked me to give my opinion on it, and honestly guys, I don't have a problem with the M16. The problem I have is people not being able to get past it. I just get bored always seeing M16, M16, M16. I'd like to see some variety out there. I wish the community could get past that, but it's like everybody always wants to do well, which, like I said, you can't hold that against people. I don't know too many people who want to play a video game and do horrible, but if you're like me, you like variety, you like to mix things up, and honestly, that's why I've never really been a big fan of the M16. I actually kind of forgot how to use it, if that makes any sense. I put it on trying to get enough kills for this video, because I always like to use a weapon a lot before I talk about it, and I put the M16 on, and I was running around with it. I was like, man, this is not as good as I remember. I feel like I was looking at it, I was like, man, I could be doing a lot better with the AEK right now, but granted, that is more suited to my playstyle. You know, I could be doing a lot better with the AK-74M or the Scar L, both weapons that I love to use. So, I don't know, it took me a while to get back in the M16 state of mind, but when I used it, I was like, man, this is really nothing special. I mean, it's just that. It's completely average. I mean, it has a really good reload, but other than that, what's good about the M16? So let me know, is the M16 overpowered? Does it need some sort of nerf? So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.